You may have seen Riot just did a massive layoff, 11% of their workforce. Let's talk about that for a minute because it kind of sheds some light on some things, and I'm going to say some things that are probably going to annoy people, but there's some reality I think if you work in the game industry you have to look at. All right, so first, 11% of the workforce, we're going to get into why in a minute because that's impacts the game industry more at large. But in general, Riot and Epic, I've seen this for both of these companies, Unity as well, is when there was this competition for talent happening, and it was happening with the tech world as well, right? So you had Facebook offering $1 million salaries, and you just had all of these people fighting for talent. They were just hiring everybody. And recruiters, man, if you want to talk about people that we don't talk about right now, is the recruitment industry. The recruitment industries that were just built solely on hiring for Epic or Riot. Like they just hired so many people. This is one of the things Valve actually did well, is never did this explosive growth thing because it always ends poorly at some point. Okay, because I remember I was at Comic-Con on a panel with somebody very nice from Ubisoft who was just like, we only hire the absolute best #1 artists in the world. Dude, you got 15,000 artists in Montreal alone. What you guys make is super great. What comes out of that process is cool, but you're not telling me every single 15,000 one of those can be #1 because that's not how numbers work, first of all. But second of all, it just doesn't happen. When you hire that many people, there's going to be mistakes made, right? And you are going to look around you at one point and be like, oh, what? I remember talking to an executive at Wargaming one time because they had explosive growth. And he's just like, well, we grew because when we needed to move a box from there to there, we hired somebody to move a box because we didn't have anybody to move boxes. And then when we had another box to move, we thought, oh, what you do is you hire somebody to move it, not instead the guy you already hired, have him move it, right? And that little story is kind of pretty much clear of what happens in the industry of like, you just think this is how we solve this problem is hiring. And so there's massive hiring on some of these companies. So that plays into it, okay? Yes, there's capitalism, mistakes, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but that plays into it. The second thing happening, and this thing I think more worrisome for the industry, first, just one note on Riot. I gotta give them credit. How they handled this was really well done. How they let people know they were gonna inform people, how they did it quickly, how they tried to remove the uncertainty, the pain, how they upfront told people what they would be getting, and their severance packages were extremely nice, is super good. That is super just that is quality. That is caring, right? That you upfront tell people, hey, we're going to tell you in 2 hours if you're fired or not. Yeah, it's always horrible, 2 hours. Okay, but like whatever. But here's the package you will be getting even if you are fired. That removes some of the unknown, some of the angst. I bet you there are a couple people hoping they were getting fired. But so that was hats off to Riot for that. But this next part is kind of the scary part, is what they essentially looked at and said, I'm going to paraphrase this part a little bit, is, hey, all of our small bets sucked. And what we really need to do is just lean into our big bets. And so as somebody who, full disclosure, is part of one of their small bets that didn't work out, sorry. They were trying to do the smart thing in the sense of we have a bunch of money coming in. We can't deploy it enough on, we can't do anything more on League or Valorant. So what more can we do? We can spin up other projects. Sure. We can do like all of these different things. But we can also work with outside people because we can't even grow fast enough. And so they were working with things of like, hey, here's our IP. Do something with it. Cool. Awesome. Hey, here's a card game. We're not going to worry about monetization on it because we just want it to grow. We're going to make a bunch of bets on small other companies outside of us. And for the industry, the scary thing is what they're finding out, which is again and again true, is those smaller bets, those mid-sized bets don't work out. That the return on those is A, both not predictable, and B, not enough. And so that's scary, right? And a company like Riot operated like how Valve operates, pretty much of there's bean counters, don't get me wrong, but pretty much projects are just run without worrying about that, thinking if the upside is so high, we don't have to care about that. But when you do mid-sized projects, you do. Because you're using a lot of resources. Those employees, remember that giant hiring spree to get people in, you offer them a lot of money. they got to make money. Now, Valve's protected also by not the super hiring spree, not to say that Valve's perfect, right? But also just Steam. Steam is not making a bet, right? Steam is the ETF of games in the sense of they are not making a bet on individual game. They are making a bet on the market as a whole, and that is working. Obviously, you can't just replicate that. But that's what lets Steam and Valve spend like crazy without worry, because they have that to backstop all the craziness and the experimentation. Riot doesn't have that. But now Riot is majority owned, mostly owned by Tencent. Tencent's a fine company, really nice people there. I do not get me started in the, oh my God. We had people come into our forums because we use Epic and say we were Chinese plants or something. Oh my God, shut up. But Tencent as a portfolio company has to look and go, oh my God, what those middle bets aren't paying off anymore. And they closed a bunch of studios. They closed studios because they looked and said, what we need to do is giant bets. We need to do, Genshin Impact size bets, which is, is that, yeah, sure. But you know what I'm saying, is these really big bets were hundreds of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of bets, not just $100 million bet, right? That's what the money they're playing with. And so we're seeing that again and again. And I've talked to some people who've gotten investments from both Tencent, NetEase, and others. The Chinese stock market was really beating them up because there's some internal politics stuff. Like there's a whole bunch of things happening there. It was scary for them. And so, is this a reflection of that? I don't know. I know Tencent in particular seemed like they were investing less in mid-size bets early on. They saw this early. They're smart. They've got a really broad look at the market, right? And with China itself slowing and the crazy hyper growth that was happening there, not happening there, you got to work that into, what your growth is there. And yeah, it's all scary. So it is a complex thing. It is not an easy, hey, let's just throw the CEO of Riot under the bus and scream at him. Because there are things changing, and it's that middle bet that I've talked about a bunch lately of I really worry is disappearing. Now you're gonna throw a bunch of exceptions at me. And those are exceptions. That's why they're called exceptions. But they're not the mean. And if you're running a business, you can't predict exceptions. And this is what's going to affect. This is going to affect publishers. This is going to affect investment. And it's that, hey, what are the things that are really working? What are the things that could be the big bet? Because we can't make just an okay bet. We can't just make a little bit of money. And mobile's getting decimated. Though, oddly, Tencent had a lawsuit, got some, they own some mobile thing now, and it's doing well for them there. But that still plays into all of this, right? The decimation of mobile games because of Apple plays into all of this, right? And so this becomes this really, really complex situation. And so Riot's just trying to say, hey, we need to keep going. We need to be able to navigate through this, and we need to start worrying about making money and being profitable. And that's why they come out of that. Now, there's a bunch of sites and people I follow on here who are going to scream about, the communists are going to scream about this is capitalism and this is horrible and all of that because they're trying to be profitable. But there is a literal worry here that when the growth stops in the industry and the players stop because they're only buying 1 or 2 games a year, we need to change how we think about things. We're not going to stop people from playing Fortnite. I guess Lego Fortnite stopped people itself, but whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's fine. But, right, like, this is a problem, and this is going to be a problem for the next couple of years. And lifestyle games versus mid-size games versus how many games you play a year and all of those statistics. I should find that statistic, how many games people play a year these days. But, yeah, that is all going to play into this. And so the Riot layoffs, sorry for everyone affected, are bad. They suck. But they kind of speak to a state of the industry as well. At least I think they do. So, and I don't know if you can hear Boris, but he's crying for his lunch. So I'm going to go feed Boris. So, like when I talk about Boris, and don't show him. There he is. You can get fed, huh? Oh yeah, you can give me his. Okay. And this is Bella. Show your face. Show that beautiful face.